Good afternoon, and welcome to True Crime Mysteries, where we take a dive into some of the world's most prolific crimes. If this is your first time to the channel, hello and welcome, and thank you for being here. Today, we are discussing 3 cold cases that were solved decades later by DNA. Let's get into it. Disclaimer, this video involves sexual assault and may be triggering for some viewers. Number 1. April Tinsley. In Fort Wayne, Indiana, 8-year-old April Tinsley failed to show up for dinner April 1st, 1988. She had been playing with 2 friends and had went to get her umbrella and never returned. Her mother called over to the friend's house and discovered her daughter was not at either homes, and she immediately called police. A search party was quickly gathered of over 200 officers and 50 volunteers from the neighborhood. This was a close-knit community devastated by a missing child, and they rallied to support April's mother. During canvassing, a witness came forward saying she saw a white male in his 30s driving a blue pickup truck in the area. The witness said she saw the truck pull over for a little girl walking down the road, and the child entered the vehicle. She said it looked like a relative or a parent picking up a child and saw nothing suspicious about the interaction. Police ran a sketch of the witness account. A jogger discovered April's body on the 4th of April in a ditch in Spencerville, Indiana. Police determined she had been deceased for 1 or 2 days before discovery. She had only been in the ditch for about 4 hours. Near the scene, they found one of Tinsley's shoes and a sex toy in a shopping bag a few miles down the road. They recovered Tinsley's other shoe, as if the killer had noticed the shoe was still in his vehicle and threw it out the window as he was driving. A motorist came forward saying he saw a blue pickup truck in the area in the early morning hours pulled over. The autopsy revealed April had been sexually assaulted and was strangled to death. They recovered DNA at the scene, but DNA was still in its infancy and it generated no suspects. Police initially had a suspect who was a known child predator in the area, but his DNA was not a match. Police initially had a suspect who was a known child predator in the area, but the DNA was not a match. The case quickly grew cold. In May 21st, 1990, a man called police because he had discovered a message written in crayon on his barn door. The note read, "I killed 8-year-old April M. Tinsley. Did you find the other shoe? Ha ha, I will kill again." Police were certain that the message was written by the killer because they had never revealed the detail about the second shoe to the media. There had been another murder in June of 1990, 7-year-old Sarah Jean Bowker, and it was believed the 2 murders were connected. However, the FBI ruled that they were unrelated. In 2004, 4 notes were found in the Fort Wayne area that were believed to have been written by Tinsley's killer. 3 notes were left on girls' bicycles, and another was left in a mailbox. The notes were placed in plastic bags, along with used condoms and Polaroid pictures of a man's lower body. One of the notes read, "Hi honey, I have been watching you. I am the same person that kidnapped and killed April Tinsley. You are my next victim. If you don't report this to the police and I don't see this in the paper tomorrow or on the local news, I will blow up your house." The DNA in the condoms matched the DNA recovered from April's body. In 2005, the Tinsley family held a press conference asking for leads in the case, and in June 2009, Indiana authorities asked the FBI Child Abduction Task Force to help them solve the murder. The FBI profiled the killer as a white male in his 40s to 50s living in the area who was a preferential child sex offender and had a low to medium income, and he would be unlikely to contain his desires and would probably kill again. In 2009, the Tinsley murder was featured on America's Most Wanted and ran the segment Asking for Tips. In 2015, a genetic reconstruction company released a snapshot composite sketch of a suspect based on how he would look according to his DNA. Police asked to age the suspect and re-released the photo in 2016. In 2018, the Fort Wayne Police Department sent a sample of the suspect's DNA to a forensic company which used genealogy from public sources like Ancestry DNA or 23andMe to reverse engineer a family tree. From this, they narrowed the DNA down to two brothers. They began following the two brothers, one being 59-year-old John D. Miller. Using Miller's trash, they were able to make a positive match to the killer of April Tinsley. Detectives approached Miller, read him his rights, and when detectives asked if he knew why they were there, Miller replied, "April Tinsley." When he was arrested, he confessed and pleaded guilty. He was sentenced in 2019 to 80 years in prison. April's family have created a memorial garden called April's Garden. They hold an annual walk to honor April and other child victims. Number 2, Tanya von Coolinburg and Jay Cook. 18-year-old Tanya and 20-year-old Jay left Victoria, BC on a ferry to Port Angeles, Washington on November 18, 1987. Cook had borrowed his father's van for the trip and planned to camp overnight in Seattle and purchase some parts for Cook's father. The couple had been dating for 6 months. They both lived at home still and were excited for a getaway. Upon arrival in Port Angeles, they drove down Route 101 and boarded a second ferry to Seattle. The couple was last seen leaving the Bremerton Ferry Terminal, and when the couple did not return the next day as they had planned to, the families of the couple became concerned, and on November 20th, they called police. 4 days later, Tanya's half-naked body was recovered in a ditch by a rural road in Algiers, Washington. She had been raped, bound with zip ties, and shot in the head. Initially, Cook's family had been warned that they were looking at Jay as the primary suspect, but his family knew he would never have killed anyone, and his family were vindicated when hunters found Jay Cook's body 60 miles from where Tanya was found. He had been strangled and beaten with rocks, and it was speculated that Cook had died first, his body dumped, and then Tanya was abducted and killed further away. Tanya's wallet and keys were found discarded at a Greyhound bus station in Bellingham, and the van was recovered a few blocks away. Inside the van, they found more plastic ties, the same that were used to bind Tanya, plastic gloves, receipts from along the trip, as well as DNA believed to be the killer's. The family noted that Tanya's camera was missing, and they were certain she had it with her when she left. The DNA recovered didn't match anyone in any criminal databases, but because the killer had used gloves, the police speculated that the killer was taunting police, and they thought the killer may have experience with the prison system. Investigators believe that the couple had picked up a hitchhiker or perhaps even had met them on the ferry. For several years, the families of the victims received numerous cards taunting them for the deaths of their loved ones. Police eventually found the man responsible, a homeless man located in Canada, who had mental health issues and confessed to sending the letters at a very low point in his life. He had wanted to apologize to the families for their cruelty. Police determined this man had no connection to the murders. On May 18th, 2018, a 55-year-old Seattle man was taken into custody after his DNA matched the DNA collected from the scene nearly 3 decades back. Police used reverse DNA genealogy analysis, the same tactic used to put away the Golden State Killer, only a month previous. William Earl Talbot II would have been 24 years old at the time of the murders. Tanya's body had been 6 miles from his parents' home. He worked as a truck driver for the last 20 years. He had no criminal record except for a charge of indecent exposure, and he was never a suspect. or had been tipped to the police prior to the DNA connection. He was charged in the abduction, rape, and murder of Tanya von Coolinburg and the murder of Jay Cook. Talbot is now being investigated for other crimes in the area, as well as locating Tanya's camera. His trial will begin June of 2019, and I will follow up with any updates from this case. Number 3, Michela Welsh. On March 26, 1986, 12-year-old Michela Welsh was babysitting her 2 younger sisters at a park in Tacoma, Washington. Michela got on her bike to return home to make some more sandwiches for the girls. While Michela was gone, her sisters went to nearby businesses to use the washroom. They had also made a call home to check in on their older sister and let her know where they were, but no one picked up. Michela returned to the park and was unable to locate her sisters. She was last seen at 1:30 p.m. talking to an unidentified man. Her sisters returned to the park, waited, and when Michela didn't return, they went back home and called police. Around 11 p.m., a tracking dog located Michela's body in an isolated area more than a quarter mile away from the park. Michela had been sexually assaulted and her throat had been slit. The initial suspects in the investigation was the man that Welsh had last spoken to in the park. He had been described as possibly Hispanic, 25 to 35, 5'8", with black hair and a possible mustache. Another suspect was a man seen in the park observing young girls, and he was described as 24 to 25, 5'9", and skinny, wearing dirty, ripped clothing. Composite sketches were drawn up for the 2 sightings, but the leads ran cold quickly. Police had also looked into a known child killer, David Fisher, but the police couldn't connect him to the area of the crime. There had been a similar murder case in the area, Jenny Bastian, a 13-year-old who had been sexually assaulted and strangled in the Tacoma area. Her body had also been found in a remote, wooded area, and police were certain the murders were connected, being only 6 months apart and the same area. DNA evidence collected from the scenes determined the killers were different men. Jenny Bastian's murder was located in Illinois. He had been in the police database. In the Welsh investigation, her murderer didn't appear to be in any databases, but in 2016, police hired a genetic genealogy to be done on the DNA evidence, and they were able to narrow down the search to 2 brothers. They both lived in the area in 1986, and the older brother, Gary Hartman, had remained in the area his entire life. Police put both men under surveillance and observed Gary Hartman while he was in a restaurant. He used a napkin several times, and the police were able to collect the napkin and get a positive DNA match. They arrested the 66-year-old man the following day during a traffic stop. Gary Hartman spent the last 2 decades working as a nurse. He had worked in the Western State Hospital as a community nurse specialist. He had no formal complaints and no criminal record. Welsh denies these charges, and I will also put any updates to his case in another video. Those were 3 cold cases solved decades later. As technology increases, more and more of these cases are getting solved, and the victims are getting the justice they and their families deserve. I love a mystery, but I love a resolution even more. If you like the content and want to support the channel, please hit the like button and subscribe. Comment down below what you want me to do next, and if you want to know what is up and coming, follow me on my socials. Thank you all for watching, and I appreciate you greatly. Stay safe.